this is an interesting one. this this story is a bit mental. Basically, a neo-Nazi gets arrested for being a neo-Nazi. Because Europe, they kind of have very strict laws about that whole thing. Because I don't know if you're a history buff, etc., etc. Neo-Nazis then going to go to court. Neo-Nazi transitions, right? Then goes to court to basically say it's my right, I'm a troon, blah blah blah, right? And then goes on the run, right? That's by the way, that's the tip of the iceberg. Let's get into the actual story. From Moscow with Love, Germany issues arrest warrant after neo-Nazi Liebig flees the country. German authorities issued an arrest warrant for neo-Nazi Marla Svenja Liebig after fleeing abroad instead of reporting to prison Liebig has insinuated to be in Russia. German authorities issued an arrest warrant for neo-Nazi Marla Svenja Liebig, formerly Sven Liebig, after failing to report to a Chemnitz women's prison to begin serving a sentence and fled abroad, police confirmed. Because basically, I think the trans thing, from what I'm hearing, is completely fake. He was just being a big troll in court. But they were sending him to women's prison. They were sending him to women's prison, so he could have went there. Sorry, she could have went there, and instead he just went, nah, you know what, fuck, I'm just leaving. Dress and bra in hand, and just fled to Russia. Liebig has remained active on social media since the escape, posting on X that they are on the territory of the Russian Federation and speaking with officials close to the Kremlin. Nobody knew about my decision, no lawyer, no family. I'm just not encouraging or condoning, right, but that's the way you do an escape plan. You tell absolutely no one. All purchases, cash in hand. Do not use Amazon. Anyway, I'm digressing. Liebig said alongside a photo in front of St. Basil's Cathedral with text reading, "From Moscow with Love, James Bond." Even as a little girl, I went to a school with extended Russian lessons, Liebig said, noting how much of that is still deep in my head. The neo-Nazi disclosed plans to apply for asylum in the United States from Russia, claiming interest has been expressed. It is unclear whether Liebig, who has become known for his bizarre stunts, was indeed in Russia. A known provocateur who was in trouble with the law for wearing a Nazi uniform, Liebig has been seen wearing a Star of David since the name and gender change. It's like, I'm sorry, if I was a braver man, I would have pulled this shit during my trial, but fucking hell. Potential abuse of Germany's new self-declaration law. In July 2023, Liebig, who was still known as Sven, was sentenced to 1.5 years in jail without parole for right-wing extremist activities, including incitement to hatred, defamation, and insult. Yeah, because you can be jailed for insulting people in Germany. A year and a half later, Liebig took advantage of Germany's new law called the Self-Determination Act, which makes it easier for trans and non-binary people to have their gender entry and name changed. Liebig then used the new self-identification to request serving the sentence in a women's facility, sparking widespread controversy, as it very often does. And a lot of people fake it just so that they can have an easier time in prison. Before changing gender and first name, Liebig disrupted an LGBTQ plus pride parade in the city of Hull and had called queer people parasites of society. Well, just because that's happened in the past, it's not up to you to decide what his gender is, what her gender is. That's not up to you. That's up to the individual themselves. They're allowed to choose what their gender are. Who are you to say that Sven is not Svenja? They get to decide their own identity. It's literally in the law. You don't know the thoughts that are in a person's head, so you can just shut up, bigot. Federal Minister of the Interior Alexander Dobrindt accused Liebig of abusing the regulation. If you don't want it abused, don't have it. But anyway, the judiciary, the public, and politicians are being made fools of here. I know, that's why this entire thing's really fucking funny. He told local media. Dobrindt now wants to protect the Self-Determination Act from abuse better. But you should have wrote the law better then, shouldn't you have? Or even better, don't fucking have it at all. We now need a debate on how to re-establish clear rules against the abuse of gender reassignment, he concluded. That's the thing is, you never will, because you will never be able to know the thoughts that are inside a person's head. You'll never know. So who are you to say that they aren't really transitioning? Who are you to say that they're transitioning just to have an easier time in a women's prison? You don't know that. And you can't prove that because you don't know the thoughts that are in people's heads. Something that annoys the government to no fucking end. Right? So you can just shut up, Dobrint. You fucking bigot. Thought you were an ally of the LGBT LMNOP people. How could any of this even happen? The formerly ruling Traffic Light Coalition of centre-left SPD, Liberal FDP and the Greens simplified German laws, making it possible to change one's name and gender through a simple declaration at the registry office since November 2024. I would just go down and do it every morning. Just every morning on my way to work. Yeah, hello. Vagina today, yeah. Fill out my form. I'm going to get some Wiener Schnitzel. Goodbye. Turn up the next day in a wig. I changed my mind. I'm sorry, I can't do a German accent without sounding gay. While the aim of the Self-Determination Act was to make it easier for transgender and non-binary people to change their gender and name, this also made it easier to abuse the system, which might lead to another dispute within the black-red government of SPD and centre-right CDU, which has since called for talks on new regulations. The coalition agreement stated that the law will be evaluated by July 2026 or sooner. That's the thing that's amazing. It's already been abused now, but because governments are such bureaucratic shitholes, they can't even discuss it. They can't even evaluate it and have a chat about it for a whole fucking year. Like, that's how bad governments are. This is a very serious issue that's affecting everybody right now. We can have a talk about this in 1 year. That's a fucking joke. However, SPD continues to back the law, as confirmed by Carmen Wege, legal policy spokesperson for the party's parliamentary group, who said there will be no changes to the Self-Determination Act. Falco Drossman, queer policy spokesperson for the SPD parliamentary group, also told Der Spiegel, I clearly reject blanket tightening or rolling back of the law. Even the leftists are like, no, even if literal Nazis abuse it to escape justice, you're not rolling this law back. Anyway, the Liebig case is a targeted attempt at abuse by a known right-wing extremist and not a structural problem with the Self-Determination Act, said Drossman. That's true until everybody just sees what like Liebig did and then copies him. Sorry. Right? That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. UN expert on women's rights Reem Al-Salem warned of the dangers of women and girls when the law was passed. Yeah, because when you put them into women's prisons, it's not good. But anyway, women who are affected by male violence are particularly at risk, she said at the time, and protective measures to prevent abusers from exploiting the law are simply lacking. Again, because you don't know the thoughts that are in a person's head. But basically, like, say what you want, but he's a Nazi. Yes, and I understand, and I see that. I hear you. However, that's really fucking funny.